I recently bought a Marvel Legends Spider-Man retro-styled lizard figure, which has in fact started a new hobby of mine to try and seek out my own little Sinister 6. I really like Spider-Man, so I want to try and amass a large collection of Spider-Man figures. So here I have Hobgoblin, Scorpion, and Shocker, all retro-styled figures at a 35% discount here. Scorpion was the main draw for me. Once I saw that he was on a clearance, I decided to try my luck at getting some of the extras. Now that I have 4 out of 6, I kind of want to keep going. The figures appear in a retro-styled carded box to mimic those toys from the 90s. The back of these boxes shows some information on the figures. Feel free to take a look as well as the roster down below of the other figures in this wave. Scorpion, however, seems to stand on his own. There's no roster given. This leads me to believe that he's some form of an exclusive or special figure like the Lizard was. Here in NZ, this type of stuff is a rarity. We don't really do store exclusives the same way other stores worldwide do. We still have some, but they're never really advertised as being exclusives, and no one actually talks about them as such. The action figure base is pretty small here in this country, so once these hit shelves and they're gone, they're just gone. But I like this little collection for the colors and the articulation. The prices are always pretty horrific for Hasbro figures these days, but at only 30 NZD on special, that's the perfect price for me to start getting interested. Here they all are out of the box, some nice poses, and some are easier to stand, some of them are not. So I'll start with the outlier here. Hobgoblin was purchased by me because I can't really guarantee that I'll ever get my hands on a green goblin. Lord knows I'll try. However, after dealing with some of these accessories, maybe I'll rethink that. For starters, he has his purple glider, which I think is pretty cool. It feels very thin and basic, but it's just basic enough to be cost effective and still be a good looking glider. Displaying this figure though is a nightmare. Hobgoblin just can't fit in this glider easily. I'll clearly break the strap if I try, so I actually just gave up trying to get him on it. I think he needed some curled feet or something to latch into the strap. There's also this little pumpkin bomb, which is a really nice addition and it has some pretty great detailing, but I haven't been able to get him to hold it easily. He doesn't have an alternate hand to help hold this accessory, so I gave up trying to make it work. He's also included with a backpack, which I have him wearing. It's a really nice addition with some nice surprising details like the latch, but the whole thing is purple, so it's a little hard to tell some of those details sometimes. Articulation wise, he can achieve mostly everything. He has bends in his neck for some head movement, he has spine bends and the waist can rotate, his arms can move up and down as well as rotate, and he has those nice bends in the elbow for his lower arm to be moved. His glove is actually a separate piece entirely, which can be removed from the figure, and I think that's a nice touch. It makes this painted piece pop a bit more. His cape and hood really impressed me as well. I'm not used to figures like this having this type of rubbery material, but it is very reminiscent from when I was a kid. I love that tattered look of the rips and tears. They look pretty genuine to me, but I also love the fact that his head is a separate piece altogether. His head can be detached from the neck joint and the cape and hood can be removed entirely. I think that's great. I've had many figures as a kid that couldn't have extra details like this, so I really appreciate it here. His legs move outwards and have rotates on them, and the legs are similar to the arms. There's some knee joints so he can bend easily. His boots can only rotate and his foot can move, but he doesn't have any toe articulation, which I guess must just be a Spider-Man thing. He is cool overall, but he does have a couple of oddities that kind of change my perspective on some features. I really like the materials used here, but I don't think his accessories work. Shocker was pretty high on my list for a Sinister 6 team member since he is a traditional member. I do really like how he came out as well. The lack of black paint for his lines doesn't really bother me quite so much. I think it might have looked a bit too busy with those details. He can move at the head like Hobgoblin, and he has the same arm movements all the way up until his gloves. His gauntlets here are actually one full piece that can only rotate, but they have no other movement. I have his accessories here included. He has 2 of these Power Blast things. They are rubbery in their design and they look a lot like a Doctor Strange accessory to me. I think they're cool, but I don't think they work for Shocker. This looks kinda strange to me. Maybe he should have included one of these and an actual blasting piece to look like a before and after effect. Like I mentioned, that gauntlet can rotate and it makes for some really cool poses, but there's no other movements. He does have spine movements though, and waist rotates as well. Everything else about him I believe is pretty standard and similar to Hobgoblin. He also includes these extra hands which are an open palm gauntlet, so he seems to be more relaxed here. I really like having characters feature 2 different styles of hands, so I like this inclusion. And here we have Scorpion, who again, like I said, is the main reason of purchase for me. Now that I have him and the others, that's 4 out of 6 possible villains, and I would like to keep going. He's always been a favorite of mine for his colors and his special pieces. It's not likely that a different figure will feature the same parts as him. I really like his face here that shows his mask and skin underneath. A couple of Scorpion designs over the years have had his full face green, so I'm glad that this one isn't in that style. His arms feature the same good articulation as Hobgoblin compared to Shocker, because he can actually rotate his hands now. He features a fist and an open hand, so there's no need for me to have to swap stuff out. He can rotate at his chest and waist, but he doesn't include any spine movements. probably would have interfered with the backpack piece, but I also think it could have helped with standing maybe, so it's a shame that that's not included here. His legs feature the same standard movements like bends in the knee and rotates where they work best. The really compelling part of this figure is his backpack and scorpion tail. It's a separate piece altogether, but I'm not convinced that I can remove it without breaking the figure first, so I don't think I'll try it. The backpack is half dark green and half that lime color, and the full tail keeps that color going. His tail is really long and it has a bendy wire inside so that you can add articulation and posability and have it however you want. At the end is his rubber stinger, which does change the colors. Like I said, it's rubber, so it's not going to do any real damage. I really like how it looks all together, but overall it's pretty tough displaying him. It can be a little tricky sometimes. He needs a pretty good balance support system. The tail probably needs to be bent around a few times, and maybe it needs to support him against a wall or the ground for him to stand proper. That's my little look at the Marvel Legends Spider-Man Retro series of villains. Here we have Hobgoblin, Shocker, and Scorpion. I do really like the three all together. I'm not sure how I would have felt if I got them individually on their own. I think having them together makes the display a lot more appealing, and I can't wait to see who I can get hold of next.